Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Boy, oh boy, have I got a gem for you today. This summer, I had a chance to interview Joe Bott, the founder of the DeadFred website at DeadFred.com, and that was for the July episode of the Family Tree Magazine podcast. Well, DeadFred is an extremely popular website where you can post an old photo that you can't identify to see if anybody else can, and where you can browse old photographs to see if there might be an ancestor of yours in there somewhere. Well, DeadFred has been around for a long time by internet standards and is consistently on the 101 best websites for genealogists put out by Family Tree Magazine. Well, after talking with Joe in that brief 5-minute interview, I just couldn't bear to leave it there. I wanted to hear some of his DeadFred success stories, and boy, does he have some doozies. And I have got him on the show today to tell them in his own words. And as a special treat, you'll be hearing from one of the recipients of one of DeadFred's photographic gems. It's an amazing story. I'm really pleased to have on the show today Joe Bott. He is the founder and the guy who is behind the DeadFred website. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hi, Lisa.
It's great to have you here. And boy, after we talked on the Family Tree Magazine podcast, I thought I gotta have Joe on the show and tell us more, about the DeadFred website. And I would love to have you share some of the stories of the reunions that have happened. So first of all, just in case, by chance, anybody out there hasn't been to DeadFred yet, which is hard to believe, just give us a quick overview of what you do there on the website.
Well, DeadFred is pretty simple in its function. It's simply there to help folks find their ancestors' photographs. It's also a website that you can place your own photographs on. To help connect you with your ancestors or with your relatives and let them see their ancestors' photographs. And it has all the bells and whistles that you would need to go in there and explore and to dig out the ones that you were looking for. And hopefully they're there. Right now we're up to almost 100,000 photographs and getting about 100 a week on average. A lot of activity. Photos from all over the world, and that's pretty much it. It's a relatively simple site. It's there to connect, and that's the sole purpose of why we're there.
You bet. Well, yeah. And I'm kind of curious, what motivated you to get started? I mean, I'm guessing you might enjoy old photographs. What led to you bringing it online and then allowing other people to interact with photographs?
Yeah, well, you mentioned I like old photographs. I'm obsessive compulsive, like a lot of people in the genealogy industry, and I'll admit it. I've been collecting photographs from '65 when I was in the Navy, and I've got about 17,000 total right now. Why I do it, I have no idea, but I do love them. And every time I walk into an antique shop or some shop that has photos, I have to buy them because they're screaming at me. But yeah, so I've been collecting, and I do pick them up here and there. I travel quite a bit for work, and every time I get an opportunity to take a side road or find an antique shop or flea market, I'll go there if I have the time and see what they have available. I've got a lot of my photos that way. But when I really started DeadFred back in '98, I was very ill. I was laid up for 4 months. And I was going stir crazy, and I was driving my wife nuts. So she went out and she bought me a computer, and she goes, "Here, play with it." So I did, and I started doing some of my genealogy And I thought, you said, gee, you know, I went in there, I couldn't find a lot. But one thing, I did find some things, but I couldn't find any photographs. And I found out, I looked, and I said, you know, there's not a lot of photographs out there. There is. I mean, everybody has their photographs in their websites or on their particular sites, wherever they go, but they don't, I didn't see any comprehensive site. So I went into, I was going through my photographs, doing some sorting, and I found a photograph of a woman and her son, and her name was Gregson. And I said, well, maybe I can find out who these people are, or whatever happened to their families. So I did. I went in, and I did some searching. Went on the SSDI, which was there back then, and also Yahoo at the time had a great people search on it. I don't know if you remember that. And I was able to track down the owner I was able to track down the son of the baby. And he lived in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and I called him. I got his phone number, and I told him I had a picture of his grandmother and his father. And his father had passed away just about a year prior to that. And I sent it to him. I said, wow, this is fantastic, you know. And so I started going through my collection and pulling out the photos that were identified by name and also by place, if possible. You know, because you get your photographer's mark on these photographs. And so I was able to put them up online, but I didn't have a lot of room. AOL just did not give it to you. So I went out and I called up a company that was close by that built websites, and I asked them to build me a website. And we started loading photographs up on it. And I had about 2,000 that in my collection that I could be identified. We put them up, and that's how it started. That's how it began. And the name DeadFred, you know, I do collect photographs, and I found a photograph on eBay of Frederick the Great. and the poor guy, he never had a chance to talk while he was a kid. He had throat cancer. He was only king for 99 days, and he passed away. And there was a picture of him. It was a postmortem of him. I don't collect postmortems, but it was a good deal. It was cheap, and I bought it. And at that time is when I was looking for a name for my website. My family and I sat down together, and we were making a list of different names. And DeadFred popped up, and that's the one that won it. And that's how we got the name DeadFred. And I have a picture of him on the website. If anybody cares to go and take a look at him, a little bit about his history. He was a great guy, and he was also alive during the time that my great-great-grandfather was walking around Germany. So kind of ties in somewhat into my genealogy.
Kind of a connection there. And I know it was that catchy name of DeadFred that caught the eye of Karen Hammel when she was at FGS, and that led to a reunion. Tell us that story. Yeah,
that was pretty exciting. You know, we had it was 2004 in Austin at FGS, and we set up a computer, a laptop, and we were able to lock into a Wi-Fi, and we offered folks to come into our booth to look up their ancestors, and we showed them how to use the site so they get familiar with it. And Karen came by, and she said, you know, go ahead, type in Hammel. I said, well, you go ahead and do it. So she went ahead and she typed it in, and there was this Gustavo is, I guess, how you pronounce it, and Gustavo Hammel. And she looked into it a little further. You know, there was some information on him there, and it was from the same neighborhood, same place that her ancestors was from. Actually, it was her husband's great grandfather, I believe it was. And she says, you know what? It was the first photo she pulled up on there, and it was her relative. And she says, I have a photo. It's not the same one, but I have a photo of this guy back in my house. So I said, why don't you send it to me by email, and I'll match them up, and we'll take a look. And she did, and it was identical. It was the same guy, a couple of years difference in age, but it was identical. So I sent her the photograph, and she found her relative. She got really excited about it, and so did we, because, as a matter of fact, I'm going to back up here a second. if I recollect correctly, it was not, she didn't type in Hammel, she typed in the name of the town and the state where she was looking, and she came up with the photo. And it was that person, because this was a mystery photo. And it was, matter of fact, it was the second mystery photo that anybody had ever discovered, because mysteries are really tough. They're a shot in the dark, and this one was a connection. It was very exciting. Not only exciting because of that, we were face to face with the person who found them. Usually they find them on our site and write to us about it.
Oh, that must have been a thrill to see the look on her face and the excitement in her voice about finding him.
Yeah, it was. It was. You can't describe it. You can't find words for that kind of thing. And it was absolutely exciting. It was really good. And so that was one of our high watermarks when it came to people, somebody finding a photograph, and that was very exciting.
I guess, first of all, I was hoping that you would just tell us how you first became aware of the DeadFred website. I think Joe mentioned something about you meeting at FGS.
Right, yeah. I really had never heard of it before, and I was just walking around the FGS area where all the vendors had their displays out, and I was really making my last route through there and was about to leave. And I saw this, the words DeadFred, and I thought, what in the world is that? And so he didn't look like he was too busy, and I walked over and said, well, okay, what's up with this? And so he started showing me what it did, and it was just such an incredible, it was an incredible moment, because I didn't have any particular ancestor in mind that I was looking for. I've been doing genealogy research for probably 35 years, and I just happened by his booth. And when he started showing me how it worked, he said, well, you can pick from all of these cities. And I said, oh, I see you've got Ohio. What have you got in Ohio? My husband was born in Painesville, Ohio. And I saw Painesville, and I thought, good grief, there can't be but a handful of people in Painesville. How could he possibly have any pictures from there, And so I said, well, show me what you got from Painesville. And the very first picture that started loading, as it started coming up, it started at the top of this guy's head, and when it got to his eyes, I just gasped, because I had only seen one picture of my husband's great-grandfather, and I knew that was him. And it was just an incredible feeling. I just went, that's Gustavo Hammel.
That's amazing.
It really was amazing, because like I said, we only had one picture of him as a young man and several little snapshots of him as an older man. He came to America from Germany in like 1886 or something, and I'd never met any of that part of the family, and it was just so exciting. It was so exciting. But when I saw his eyes, I just knew it was him. And he kept loading it up, and he said, are you kidding me? I think you know this guy? And I said, yes, I have a picture of him at home. So I sent him a copy of my picture, and he had whoever that he has, look at it and say, yeah, this is the same guy, and sent me the copy.
That's amazing. And that was Gustavo Carl Hammel, is that right?
Yes, uh-huh.
And I'm looking at a photograph of the same photograph that you found on the website. He has very piercing eyes. I mean, I can imagine.
Beautiful.
Yes. I mean, very identifiable. I can't imagine getting him mixed up. And isn't that funny that, well, one, that funny name of DeadFred caught your attention, but then two, to go in through not searching on a surname, but you were looking at places. And that seems like it's be a really good way to go.
Well, I just didn't know any other way to do it, because I've got boatloads of ancestors. Who was I going to look for, And I really didn't intend to look for any until he showed me that he just happened to be going down the list, and I saw Ohio, and I said, oh, my husband's from Ohio. What you got up there? And it was just I don't know, one of those serendipitous moments that you just think, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
Does that happen very often, that somebody would just go on and find it? And in general, how many reunions have you had?
Over 1,500 now. And
amazing.
Yeah, 1,500 photographs. And it's mind-boggling, really, to think that, with 100,000 photographs that we have, that, 1% of them, a little more than 1% of them, are connected. But it's a small world out there, honestly. There's a lot of interconnection, and people do find their relatives. So I run into that. People find relatives, and they don't mention it. I'd love to hear from them if they do, because I like to keep track of it. So it seems to work, and hey, I'm just as happy as can be that it does. And that's what it's all about.
You bet. Joe, that brings me to another success story that you told me about, which was, it included over about a dozen photographs. Tell us how you ended up finding them in an antique shop and they found their way to a descendant.
Yeah, you're talking about the Blair Gordon. I was up in Rochester, Minnesota, doing some work, and driving home, I went through Iowa. And came to a town called Kelowna, and there was an antique store there called Kelowna Antique Shop. And I stopped in. And I asked the guy that owned it, you have any photographs? He said, yeah, we have some here and there. And he pointed to a couple of them, and then he said, I just got done an estate sale, and there's a box of them sitting underneath this table. And I went in underneath the table and looked at them. There's a box of about 40 of them. And they were a lot of them were from Ontario, or from Canada. And I bought them and took them home with me and put them on my website. And about 3 months later, I get an email from Blair Gordon from Milford, Saskatchewan. And she says that, that's her family. That there was Hacking, Shawls, and there's some Hanks, Aaron's, there's a few other names, and she goes, these are my cousins. She pointed out to me how they're related, and there were some that were closer than cousins. And apparently, back in the 19th century, her family, or most of her family, went south into the United States, and they settled in the Iowa area. And that was a box left over from the family who died off, and the estate sale for the house, and the photographs wound up in the antique shop under a table. And then I was able to put them on the line, and she was able to find them. That's the power of the internet. It's totally phenomenal.
Exactly. Now, what state do you live in?
I live in Arkansas.
So you're in Arkansas. You're traveling in Minnesota. You make your way through Iowa and pick up photographs that are connected to Canada. I mean, you are certainly helping to make it a very small world. And I know that you shared the email with me that Blair sent you. And she said, on January 5th of the next year, it'll be 4 years since I first discovered your site and found all the cousins. It was a real treasure for me. Until then, they were only names in my database, and they were in remarkably good condition. Fortunately for me, you had seen the value in saving them. Otherwise, it left unclaimed. They would have ended up most likely in a trash can. What is it, Joe, that draws you to particular photographs? Are you picking particular photographs? Do they need to have names on them? Or is it pretty much if they're there, you grab them?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the wealth of Howard Hughes or somebody like that. And when I go into an antique shop, I want to buy them all, but I can't. The ones that I can rescue and have a better chance of connecting with their family are the ones I purchase. And those are the ones that have either a photographer's name on them and a place. So we can put that photograph in a town, in a state, and connect it with a photographer That would be the least I'd like to have. And then if there's any information on the back of the photo, it gives me an idea who that person was, or where they left, or who their aunt was, or this is to Aunt Millie, or to my grandma Mary. At least that ties in some names. And those like kind of like triangulate, I guess, and it gives you some opportunity to connect. Now, it doesn't mean I won't buy a whole box. If I find a whole box of maybe 100 photos, and I'll tell you a short story here in a minute if you have time. If I find a whole box of photos and half of them are identified and half of them aren't, I'm gonna do everything I can. I'll buy that box, and I'll talk to the owner of the store or whoever I buy it from, whether or not I can work out a deal. And then the reason why I say that is, that some people want very high prices for these, and I try to explain them what I'm trying to do, and sometimes I was able to get some deals. But I was up in Duluth, Minnesota a few years back, and I ran into an antique shop up there that was going out of business, and I found a whole a file drawer full of photographs. There must have been 1,000 of them in it, and they're all cabinet cards. And I was able to talk to the antique dealer and to give me a deal on them, but I had to get them home, so I went out to Kmart and bought the biggest suitcase I could find, and I took it to the antique shop and I filled it up, and it actually held all the photographs right up to the top. It was very heavy. I think I paid like $80 to ship it through the airport, and that was one of the photos that came out of with Gustavo Hammel. One of those photos were the photos that's where I got him at, was in Duluth.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got home with this big cute suitcase, and my wife says, what do you got there? And I showed her. She goes, holy mackerel. And now when I go on business, she kind of holds her breath, because if I run into a lot of photos, if I'm driving them or if I'm flying, I'll pick them up. But one thing now, Lisa, is good is I got a lot of folks that are sending me their photographs. They're finding them in trash cans. They're finding them in antique shops. They're finding them in flea markets or whatever. Or they're finding them in their attics, and they don't want them. If they don't want them, don't throw them out. Send them to DeadFred, and eventually we will get them online. We only have a few of us working. We're all volunteering, but we're trying to, as hard as we can, to put them online if they can't do it themselves.
And that brings us to, if they can, if they have a photograph and they have the ability to scan them, tell us how a person can go about getting photographs, either ones from their own collection, which could be the case. I know I've got some photographs with people in them that I don't really know who they are, but I have some of those connecting pieces of information. And then there's the others that we pick up that we have no idea who they are at all. How do they go about putting those on the website and hopefully connecting with somebody else?
Well, like I said, they can scan them in. If they have a scanner, if they have if they have a digital camera, take a picture of it, and then they can transfer it into the hard drive of their computer, and then simply just click on just go to the website, click on Post Photos. There's instructions, simple instructions on how to work. They can make it happen. And then you click on Browse, go into your hard drive, download the photograph, fill in all the information, and then click Submit. And the photo will go up into our server. Now, I inspect every photo that gets posted to the website to make sure there's nothing untoward in there. So, and then I approve them. And they go into the website, and they're searchable. The information the more information they can put in there, the better. In the comment section, that's universally searchable. It's keyword searchable. So any information that they can type in about that photograph in the comment section can be searched. And also, for instance, age, sex, date. If they know what date is, a date range, not a specific date, so they can get close to it. And the type of photo, photographer's information, the state that the surname, the maiden names. There's about 35 different pieces of information they can add to it. Just about everything you need to have to find the product, find the photo, and if it's owned by the archive, if it's DeadFred, if it's something that I put up there or something that was donated to DeadFred, it was put in, then if that person finds the photograph, they can have it. They can have it, I'll send it off to them, and they just pay whatever the postage stamp amount is. When they get the photo, it just reimburses. So
that's terrific. And then people can also, if they want to support what you're doing, they can donate to the DeadFred website, can't they? Tell us how they do that.
Absolutely. Well, we have a group. We have a Friends of Fred group that gives them all additional tools to organize their photographs and what they're submitting. And that's a $19.95 a year. That's a membership. And they can also donate directly through PayPal or a check. We'll take it. If it's $1, we even say, if you got to go into your couch and pull out some couch change, send it. We'll take it. Anything to keep us going, because we do volunteer, and it is expensive to keep it running, but we intend on keeping it running. And then we also have a book that we sell, and that is on the website too. So different ways that they can donate.
And they can find you at DeadFred.com.
Yes.
Joe, you mentioned earlier, you said, I'm not sure why I pick up these photos, but I have a sense, you're probably one of those people who was just meant to do this, because it sounds like it's your passion, and what a difference you are making to people all over the country and potentially all over the world. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some of your inspiring and really happy reunion stories about the folks who have found photographs. And I encourage everybody to go and check out the website, both to do a search and also to post any photos that you have that you might be able to identify through the help of somebody else. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Lisa, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
So what would you tell other family historians out there who are listening? They're thinking, oh yeah, but there's no way there's a photo of my family on DeadFred. What would you tell them?
I'd tell them, well, that's what I thought, but it sure happened, and for it to be the very first time I ever looked. I mean, I've looked since then, and I've never found anything else for my family. But what a gold mine right there. And I would tell them, don't ever give up. If you look for the place, go to the place where your ancestors were from and check it out, because you never know what you're going to find.
Well, and I would hope, too, that those listening not only will be searching, but will be posting, because we all have photographs, don't we, in our albums where there are other people in those photographs. We don't know who they are.
That's true. And I have some of those, and I hadn't thought about that. Now that you mention it, I should upload some of my unknown family members to his website and see if somebody can identify him for me.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
What did I tell you? Pretty amazing stuff. And Joe's a pretty amazing guy, isn't he? I want to thank Joe Bott and Karen Hammel for joining me on today's show. And yes, we had another guest in this episode. You heard him there in the background. That was my dog, Howie, barking away. Not exactly glamorous stuff, huh? Having your dog bark while you're trying to interview somebody. But I wasn't about to miss doing this interview, so sometimes you gotta just take us as a package deal. Lisa, Louise, Cooke, and Howie, the dog. Joe, just 1 second. I apologize. Looks like there's a solicitor coming to my door and it's setting my dog off like crazy. Hang on just 1 second. Sorry. I'm sure he'll give up in just a second. Sorry, that's the one downside of working from home. The guy just left. Let me go tell my dog to stop and we'll be okay. Just 1 second. Howie, hold on. Okay. Come on. Okay, he's done. When I was growing up, Christmas was a time that my grandparents came to visit. My mom was always baking, and because I was the youngest, I would get to put the star on top of the tree. And now as a mom and a soon-to-be grandma, I love shopping for the perfect presents for my family. Online shopping makes that task so much easier because we literally have the world at our computer. This year, you can get your shopping done, have the gifts delivered to your door, and support this free genealogy podcast all at the same time. If you enjoy these free shows and you'd like to help me cover the costs of bringing them to you each week, there's a really easy way that you can do that won't cost you a thing. Here's how it works. Let's say that you need to get something at Amazon.com, one of my favorite places to shop. Go to my website at genealogygems.tv and click the Amazon link or use the Amazon search box. And no matter what you buy, you financially support the show. The price you pay is exactly the same, but Genealogy Gems receives a small percentage for referring you. It's just that simple. And if you're going to be loading up your iPod or the iPod of someone you love this Christmas, just click any iTunes link on my website. And again, your purchases will help make this podcast possible at no additional charge to you. So if you enjoy the Genealogy Gems podcast and family history, Genealogy Made Easy, let your mouse do the shopping through the ads and links on the Genealogy Gems website at genealogygems.tv. And together, we'll keep new episodes coming for a long, long time. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the show. I hope you had a good time. Be sure and check out the show notes at the website, where you can see the photograph that Karen found on the DeadFred website, as well as links to Joe's website. You can visit us on the web at genealogygems.tv. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon. Are you looking for a way to get even more genealogy gems that will power boost your research, inspire your creativity, and give you the motivation that you need to tackle that brick wall? Well, become a Genealogy Gems premium member. You'll get 2 extra members-only episodes every month, packed with great information that you can use right away. An instructional video series walking you through the best internet tools step by step. Our current series is called Google, a Goldmine of Genealogy Gems, and in each episode you can follow along with me as I show you online how to get the most out of Google. If you enjoy the Genealogy Gems podcast, then you're going to love being a premium member. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what your fellow podcast listeners have to say.
This is Melissa Parker in Tennessee. I'm just calling to let you know how much I'm enjoying your Genealogy Podcast Premium Edition. I especially love the handwriting analysis with Paula Sassy, and all the tips and information that you give is just so wonderful. I would encourage anyone to become a member of your Genealogy Gems Podcast Premium.
To become a premium member and start reaping the benefits right away, go to genealogygems.tv and click the Join Today button. And by entering the special coupon code SAVE20, that's SAVE20, you will get 20% off the annual membership. Genealogy Gems Premium Membership. It's where you belong.